Welcome, everyone. This is Max. You're on the Business for Builders podcast. And today, a fella by the name of Suryansh Vats joins me in the studio today. And it's a pretty special moment. We're going to discuss a little bit about marketing and how it relates to your business and how it actually is part of your survival mechanism if you are to sort of build a company that's high performance. Sam is what we call him. That's his nickname. And he's a very educated guy. He's a good dude. He's been in business with us now for 10 months and continues to work with us on a lot of our Google Analytics and our SEO and a lot of our social media type campaigns. So what we want to do today is we want to divulge some of that information and hopefully help you in your business and help you with your understanding as to how you can use branding and marketing and lead generation and all the bits and pieces that go into what it takes to develop a very lively brand, especially on the digital landscape. Sam has a fairly well-educated background. He's got a Bachelor's of Technology, Information Technology. He speaks 3 languages. And he's just an all-round good dude, man. So welcome to the Business for Builders podcast, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me here today. And, an amazing flattery introduction about me.
It's good, man. Well, you need that. You need to just boost the ego a little bit sometimes. So look, what we've invited you in. You continue to work with us in the background at Smith & Sons. Very much. We've just obviously introduced Cam here as our content coordinator, our creative coordinator. And, after spending 10 months working with you side by side, we identified that obviously a lot of the work goes into developing a brand like Smith & Sons, really in the two departments. Yeah. Very much in the analytics, the SEO, and driving the campaigns on social media. But, what we all often talked about was the lack of content. I've got a business partner, Lee, who we're going to get on the show one day. Yeah. And, he would always say, we need more content. And I guess just on that was something that we wanted to do as a business, but we just were a little restricted and I guess that is going to be very similar cry from a lot of the GCs that are in the business as well. Yeah. So, but having you in there and working closely with you, it really created the infrastructure for Smith & Sons Canada. And so, what I want to do is maybe just reflect on those 10 months, where we started perhaps, and then really drill down on do a fairly macro deep dive on how you helped us from day one. And I guess if you shared that story, that would actually give some fairly good context for somebody who's a general contractor that deals a lot of business with retail customers, so homeowners. Yeah. And then, just really break it down for them, how they could use what you've done with us and for us over the last 10 months in their business. So, I know from a general contractor standpoint, it's a little bit intimidating because we're very practical, blue collar, we see it and we do it. What I would see you doing was certainly it wasn't as practical normally. So, the objective today is to demonstrate perhaps as best we can audibly and then, but without sort of, dumbing down the fact that what you did for us in the last 10 months and what you continue to do is a skill. There's no question that what you did is a skill. So I'm going to give you the floor a little bit now, and then I'll just, counterpunch with a few questions. But I guess as we talked about before we come on air here, we just want to sort of really segment the process, but we certainly don't want to take away from, the aspects of it that are a little bit complicated as well. So I think to get started, if you were talking to me as a general contractor and I said, look, and this is literally my story, worked on the tools for sort of 15 to 20 years as a carpenter. Now I've got my builder's license, and now I want to go out and market myself and sell my skills and my services to the retail market. And I've got a little Facebook page, which I don't do much with, and I don't really know how to use it anyway, whether it's just organic, whether it's boosted, or whether they're full-blown campaigns. And I certainly don't understand, branding and marketing. Yeah. So what I want you to do is to just run through top to toe, and, we'll spend the next 15 minutes chatting about all of the aspects to do with, websites, Google AdWords, and then digital marketing, using all the platforms. So take it away, man. Let's do this.
And before, thanks for again everything, Max. Again, it has been a great experience for me joining this company, and especially not coming from the construction background and having to get into this mindset, and having given that platform where I was given enough time to understand what the construction is. Thanks to you, I was given because marketing doesn't start without you understand what you're selling. You really need to understand why you are different, first of all, what you are what kind of services you're offering to the customer. And then that's why before we get too deep into marketing, because marketing is a really broad term where there's a lot of things, a lot of people just get overwhelmed listening to.
Yeah, I agree.
And in starting, I want people, if they want to take anything out of it, they really need to understand what their business is and what services they want to offer to the customer.
So very specific.
Very specific, very specific. And what is more important than that, is what is your value proposition to the customer?
Right.
Because there are all kinds of services. There are a bunch of general contractors out there who are giving similar services, but nobody's defining what they're really good at and what makes them different.
So like a lot of our guys, they specialize in renovations and remodeling. Yeah. And so obviously that's a niche that we've sort of drilled down on. And then of course custom homes they would probably be the two, I guess, that we can talk about today, is the renovation. So if I was sort of talking on behalf of our audience, I would say that, let's say we've got guys who are focused on renovations and remodeling. That's what they really love to do. They love to take the house apart and they like to put it back together again. Yeah. So let's talk about how someone right at the start, or someone that's been in construction a long time that now wants to start with the whole digital side of things and marketing. Yeah. So now we've specified we're into renovations, remodeling. Now what?
It's great. Like once you have started, figured out what industry you're serving, what kind of audience you're looking for. If it's remodeling or renovation, you really need to justify why you're different.
Right, in your message?
In your message,
right.
We call it unique value proposition. What value does customer get out of picking you as compared to others? Right. And it has to be, a lot of time everybody says we cater the best customer service. We are really good at our craftsmanship. We are really, but these are not tangible. When I say
and they're very generic. Yeah, everyone says that, right?
Because you cannot quantify. A customer doesn't understand the value unless they can feel it or they can see it. Whether it has to be when we talk about remodeling, whether it has to be in something tangible they can see, or whether...
So give us some examples on tangibility. So we're talking about, if you've got a website, what would you expect? What is the tangibles? Give us some examples.
What tangible would be, what kind of contracts do you do? Do you do any time guarantees? Because again, understanding what customer faces most of the problems,
Right, so find a need, find the solution, and you'll probably do some business.
Some business, exactly. Right. Like tangible in terms of... We do our fixed
price
contracts,
right?
That's tangible. That makes sense to a customer. That yes, this is what I'm getting, and a guarantee on your craftsmanship. Once you have finished your job, you get 3 months guarantee, free of cost. Or some people are doing, which is pretty common now, doing estimates. We do free estimates. So that is something tangible. You need to make sure first that customer understands it before they picks you.
Right. And so once they, so they get their understanding of their niche market, they understand what their value proposition is to their clients. What goes on maybe in the background? So obviously that's a lot of mindset, I suppose. They're trying to understand their business and their message. Where do we go after that? So do we get into some practical things? So do we start? Let's talk about the website. Yeah. So let's talk about the components and obviously what we do and what means a lot to us at Smith & Sons. Why don't you just sort of highlight what represents, and then the guys and gals can look at their websites and they can maybe use the checklist that you're about to give them audibly, and they can sort of go, okay, we've got this sorted and this sorted, but we're lacking in this area. So we work pretty hard on our website, in collaboration with a lot of, your input to us, and we made some adjustments. And so what do you think, what are the top 3 or 5 things, or what are the main key points about a website that you would advise, our general contractors or any general contractors to have on and available on their website?
With the website, why it becomes one of the most important, salesperson, we say, it's right now, 95% of searches are happening on Google.
Right.
95% of any service searches are happening by customers are happening on Google. So it becomes really important for you to be present where customers are looking for.
Right, right.
That leads to you to your presence, how important your presence becomes, online with a website, and when we talk about website, it really needs to define what services you offer in terms of really clear. It has to be easily navigational for the customer. Customer doesn't come and land there and just doesn't understand what you really offer.
We used to talk a lot about removing the friction.
Friction, exactly. Like customer needs to understand, because a customer rarely spends like less than 9 seconds before they make a decision of whether they're gonna go with it or whether they're not gonna go with it, or whether they're gonna move to a different link. So with the website, I think I think the best thing to start with, even if you're thinking of marketing, you need to first start with your website, because that is one platform that is live 24/7 and is reflecting your image outside to the customers. And you just need to make sure what services you offer needs to be really clear, needs to be really neat and easily understandable to the customer.
Okay, so where would you recommend? Because immediately as you're talking, I'm trying to put myself in that position. I'm like, okay, so I've fiddled around with some internet provider or website providers.
Yeah.
Is it good enough to have a Wix or a GoDaddy?
It is good enough. It is good enough for you to start with.
Because I know they're fairly, the UX on that, the user, the experience with using GoDaddy was quite simple.
Yeah, it totally depends on individuals' learning curve, Max.
Right.
Some people, there are so many platforms right now like Squarespace, Wix, and they are just improving day by day. The website is not as old, like doing coding, writing lines of codes and then now it's pretty quick. So you can get on these platforms, sign up, and you understand, have a nice picture, have a nice recognizable name with your service. That also helps you out, with your organic searches. It's really important to understand, that your presence.
I think we've got to be. I think if you're a general contractor out there and you say, okay, and a lot of the time there's a wife or there's a partner or somebody else out there to help, and they might have the skills as well. And I think that's important if you've got the skills in the house to sort of use that.
Yeah.
But I think it too, for builders, we've just got to think about what the client wants. So we've got to exercise a bit of empathy, and that will help us in our website design. It's like, what is it about? What if I'm a customer? What do I want? I want a low friction website. I want to see a good display of the work. Yeah. If I could just allude to a couple of things that we're bullish on, having the video testimonials with clients, to us, that's really the secret sauce, I think, because there's nothing better than having past Smith & Sons clients talking to prospective Smith & Sons clients, where, some websites just have, the testimonials or reviews in text, which is okay. But in this day and age, it's too easy to sort of fabricate those sorts of entries. And so, I think that's just as a bit of a side note, definitely having, past shots of projects for sure, but I think, it's something we're super bullish on, and we'll, if you go to our smithandsons.ca website, there's 7 there currently, and there'll probably be another 2 or 3 by the end of the year. So talk about, let's say, the text. So let's say I've got pictures of a couple of projects, and I've separated, kitchens and bathrooms and additions and maybe second floor additions and things like that. How important is it now that you've really nailed down your niche, you've defined your services, you've got some, you might have some video testimonials even, which is amazing. That's the best thing you could do. What about the text? There's, like I know Smithy's website there's a lot of information because I'm busy trolling through that to make sure we're up to snuff. Yeah. How important is it? So this is now we're starting to talk about SEO. Would that be right? Yeah. So how important? So give us the reason. So rather than just going, yes, we do quality service and all that sort of stuff. How important is it to put a lot of that text, and what sort of text should we include under those descriptions on each of the pages as it relates to SEO?
So having an understanding what SEO is you need to understand what does that mean, what does it do in a basic format, so you can understand.
Give us some context.
What you need to do. SEO stands for search engine optimization, which leads to how Google understands the data on your website.
Okay.
So Google is a big directory. When somebody makes a search, how can it find you quickly in its indexed?
Right.
And the easier for Google is to find you is the more relatable information to searches you have on your website.
Right.
So if somebody's searching for kitchen remodeling, and you do offer kitchen remodeling, you got to make sure there's enough information about kitchen remodeling on your website.
Right.
So Google can understand, the best search results for your website. And the same goes for, again, that's why you need to define what kind of services you offer. So you can be really close to the searches that are being made on Google.
So it's all about relevancy and accuracy.
Yeah.
Okay. How often do they have to update the text? I mean, once you set it up, you don't really have to go back there now, do you? Like you don't have to keep changing that sort of information?
It used to be that, but Google is drastically changing their policies every other 2 months. Mm-hmm. So now Google understands that there were ways that people were kind of finding a way around how to rank better and how to be better with their indexing.
Right.
But now having multiple different options, again, multiple different products that Google itself offers, it does factor, you need to understand first what is organic and what is inorganic searches that are happening. Organic is the more relevant data you have, so you want to be there. It reduces your cost.
So if let's say I've got my life partner or my better half or my wife doing a lot of the marketing and stuff. Yeah. You just mentioned that Google updates different parts of their, process every couple of months.
Yeah.
How do I, as a builder who's busy meeting with clients, putting quotes together, contract administration, construction, project management, how do I keep up to date with Google if they're making those changes like fairly frequently? Is there a number that I can call, or is there just a website, or they send out updates via email? What's the best way for me to stay on the cutting edge with Google?
With doing that, how we follow it is again following. Once you are a Google product or Google member, they do update you about the policies,
right,
and they do mention it to you what they are changing and what they are not changing. But SEO is not just about having keywords and having information on your website. It's about your presence online. How Google understands your presence is, again, we usually talk about omnipresence on social media.
For sure.
And that is more important when it comes to SEO.
Okay, so that's got to do. Okay, so let's move on from maybe SEO, but we can still backtrack to that because now when we talk omnipresence, am I right by saying now we're talking about what's happening on social and digital? So everything from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those other things. So how does that impact or influence or improve our SEO and our reach capability or our relevancy as far as Google's concerned? What's the connection between those two?
The connection between Google, your omnipresence and having more data out there is how active you are on internet, how active you are with your services and engaging with your customers. So Google rewards relevancy, right? Your relevancy with your information has to be on Facebook. You won't be marketing about a pizza shop on your Facebook page, right? So the more your brand name and the relevancy information on Facebook, on Instagram, on all social media platforms, and your website just creates a plethora of.
If you've got a company, Facebook page, you don't really want to be putting pictures or content about your forward driving vacation that you had last weekend.
Not at all,
because that's not going to help you.
Not at all. But all the things or all the actions you're making on digital media are not just for SEO.
Right.
You have reason, whether you want to engage more audience with, with your content, and that also drives traffic. That also is a part of SEO. How much traffic you're bringing to your platforms, that directly responds to SEO. If your content is making people come to your website, to your social media platforms, Google rewards that. Google understands that yes, there's something you are doing which is more relevant to the people when they need something. So you get rewarded in terms of searches.
Okay, and just further to that, let's just real quick talk about the power of, because we've had this in our situation, let's talk about the power of a bricks and mortar. I know there's a lot of GCs that operate completely without a bricks and mortar, a storefront or a showroom.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about how is it that, because obviously, a lot of us guys would trade out of our office at home and sort of never, and really only consider, we'd only go, well, I only want a design center or a storeroom, a storefront or a showroom if I was a big business. So there is the other advantage of having a storefront is that also because of your location in a commercial premises like we're in right now. Just share with us how Google views a legitimate storefront like we've got here at Smith & Sons head office.
Google is adding these policies. That's why I said Google is updating these policies on a really frequent basis, because Google wants to make sure to give an accurate information to its user.
Right.
When Google understands there's most of the users are coming on their platforms to seek information, and the only way the customer will keep coming back is if they give an accurate information.
Right.
So in order to complement that, Google has changed certain policies. If a lot of people, you see when you search, and in order to avoid fraudulent activities.
Yeah, sure.
You do not want to have a business on Google that says it's there and it's the name, but when you actually end up going there, it's not there.
Yeah.
It creates a bad impression with the customer or a bad experience for a customer.
And Google doesn't want that.
Yeah, Google doesn't want that.
So things like, post office boxes, we investigated that, didn't we? So some of our operators, some of our franchise general contractors, they've said, well, can we go with a post office box? Would that help?
Yeah.
Google is smarter than that, and they recognize when it's just a post office box.
And in order to make it clear, they have changed their policies, as I said a couple of months ago, and it's all mentioned up there that what are the standards you need to follow in order to have a legit Google My Business listing.
Right.
And if you want to be there on map listing, if you want to be on search listing, and you also want to be on paid listing.
Mm-hmm. Let's quickly talk about, let's go on quickly to Google AdWords. You want to just give us a bit of a top-to-toe, really brief rundown, layman's terms, probably focusing around positive keywords, negative keywords, and some of the science that goes in behind the Google AdWords process.
Once you're done making sure that your website is good, you have the right content on there for your services, and then you are omnipresent with social media telling customers, what kind of local services you're offering. Then in order to complement and amplify your lead generation, you can always go into PPC, which is called pay-per-click ads.
Right.
That relates to Google Ads. And 65% of searches are happening on Google Ads are the paid searches right now.
Right.
That are the top of the results. So Google has changed their result strategy. Now they give the paid results first, then they give the map results, and then they give the organic results.
Right.
So in order to compete,
so you can have all of that on the front page of Google.
Yes.
Yeah. Got
it. That's with every search that you make on Google. That's how the results shows. So in order to be, I really suggest the companies who are locally based and who wants to expand their business, locally, and do not want to resort on other marketing methods for getting leads, which are print methods. I think Google AdWords is one of the most important platform to be for any business services, because customers are coming there to look for services.
So they're ready to engage a general contractor.
And out of 100 people who are making searches, 65% of people are actually the people who really want the services. So you really want to be there. And how the Google ad works, it's pretty basic. What services you offer, you get ranked for those services. You add those keywords to your account, and you start ranking for those searches.
Yeah.
So for the people out there who are not too savvy about working on a website and not want to make too much content or being present on social media, that's the best solution for them.
And the deeper the pockets, the more effective,
the more results you can get.
Right.
But the long term, again, most of the people are playing short term games. With these strategy.
So they want leads coming through the door to convert to jobs.
Yeah. As far as if you're okay with that, but the goal should be your cost should reduce.
That's
and
right.
You shouldn't be paying for leads anymore. You have built an authority within your local business, or whether it's national, that people just come there and click you and just go for it.
Right. Okay, so that's pretty deep. I mean, as far as coming up with those, and so explain the positive keywords and the negative keywords. because this will relate to your niche and, you know, what your attitude towards is. Like for us, for an example, we wanted to get away from words like budget general contractor or cheapest renovation or things that would sort of not really fit. And this is why, I guess, going back to your point about designing the website and your niche market, one more thing that you know, the general contractors in our audience could think about is defining your preferred client profile. We used to talk a lot about that. That's super important. And so, you know, usually what we find is with our customers over 50, they're not necessarily focused completely on price. They're not budget. They're quality. They want good service. They want good, honest, open communication. So what are, you know, with that in mind, if we got viewers and listeners out there that say, yeah, that's what we want, we understand that we actually, you know, we want to obviously make more money, but really, you know, you get what you pay for. So what we want to talk about now is trying to not only put good positive keywords in there, like all of those words, you might be able to give a few examples of those, but also some of the negative stuff. So when you think about how you've framed up for Smith & Sons, just give some examples of, say, positive keywords as it relate to a renovation general contract, and then maybe some negatives. Give us 2 or 3 examples on each.
In layman terms, positive keywords means what words or what searches you want to rank for.
Right.
And negative keywords are what searches you don't want to rank for.
So if you just want to do additions and kitchens, you don't want to you want to get rid of fence.
You want to get
fences and decks.
You want to give, if you don't do decks,
put them in negative.
But you don't have to put them in negative. Again, it's how you understand structuring your account.
Right.
You need to be really, you really need to be sure what market you are targeting.
Right.
And if you just start targeting them, it becomes way easier to find positive and negative keywords.
Okay.
There are a bunch of tools out there called keyword planners, and a bunch of SEO companies and SEO free softwares are online.
Right.
You can find keywords relatable to your business.
Industry, yep.
But negative keyword and at the initial levels, I don't think so. A lot of people understand. But if you are running away from certain searches and you do not want to be paying for those searches, like if somebody's searching for free quotes and you do not want you do not offer free quotes, you do not want to be searching. You don't want to be ranked for those searches.
Right.
So you want to put that in a negative keyword.
Right.
It's like that. If plumbing services is not the option that you offer to your customers, then you want to make sure you do not come in plumbing services searches. So you put that as a negative.
That's fairly obvious, but it's not, we wouldn't sort of go there because we just don't understand how Google works effectively. Once you understand that, then you start realizing the power that some of these choices have when it comes to setting up your Google AdWords. Yeah,
totally. You need to have a fairly strong understanding of how these keywords affect your searches, how they affect your traffic that's coming on your website, and whether you should be paying for that or not. Because every click that happens on Google and that happens on your links, you have to you pay for that.
And so is it fair to say that, obviously what we do currently is somewhere between $5 and $25 a day, depending on the individual and depending on the amount of inquiry that we've had out of that area. We can literally have 2 guys that are 30 kilometers apart in the same town. One guy's running at 25, the other guy's running at 5. And it can literally change next week depending on their workload, right?
On the workload, totally.
So would that be, that's a fairly good parameter for our audience and our GCs that are listening, that you'd say, all right, if you're spending somewhere between 5 and 25, which is going to be governed by the amount of work that you've got on your books, because obviously a lot of these guys are doing taking the phone calls, they're booking the appointments, they're doing the site visits, they're, doing up the measure ups. They're having to go and approach suppliers and other subtrades. Like, they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So, is that a fair budget for these guys to get get an understanding of what they might spend?
That's totally fair, as I said, to begin with. But they need to understand, once they're starting, they need to be consistent.
Yeah.
Again, marketing is rewarded when you're consistent with your efforts. With our model, why it supports us, we're constantly marketing. And if you see our consistency, we are averagely spending over $2,000 on just Google ads.
Right.
So Google notices that, Google understands that, but because the way we have set up our structure, it allows us the ability to tweak it down and tweak it up.
Yes.
As per how we want to keep our guys busy, or whether they're busy or not.
And just on that, I mean, I can't imagine, and obviously we do what we do, but I think if I was a general contractor like one of our guys, to have a marketing and analytic department, and also a content creative department that's working across, working at being omnipresent on all platforms, that creates so much freedom for them. I'm sure of it. They literally fill out their retail lead report.
Yeah.
We sit down at 9:30 on a Monday. We look at what we need. We allocate budgets, and then we obviously we deploy, those changes or those upgrades.
Yeah.
And literally their whole life doesn't miss a beat. They really stick to doing what they do.
Yeah.
So I guess as long as our audience and our listeners understand that this is not something that you just do in your spare time, it's literally as important as developing or designing a quote or an estimate for a client. It takes that much diligence.
Totally.
Would that be right?
This is your bread and butter for your business.
Because without the phone ringing, we all know we don't get the quote or anything.
And that's why you see there's so much inconsistencies in the services out there. Why? Because people are playing the short game. They're just looking for leads. Again, being in this game now, I understand. Talking to the general contractors, you need to understand that if you have decided to get into the business, you need to think about the long game.
You need to act
how can you stay in the market? And a lot of I understand a lot of these general contractors and these construction company can't afford to have these full-time guys.
Sure.
But they need to invest their time to understand, because it doesn't take a lot to understand.
So they're going to educate themselves.
Yeah. And they're fairly bit simpler steps if they cannot, if right now in their budget they cannot, it doesn't allow them to do it, like having a great website, making sure their services are really nicely defined, and make sure they have a Facebook and Instagram page. A lot of people ask questions online on blogs, what should I be posting, what should I be doing, in order to engage more customers. It's simple. Going out there, the work these guys do is easily visible. It's taking pictures, taking team shots, showing an emotion, and having giveaways with your local community, engaging with your local community. And then once they are done with this little stuff, they can go on to the Google AdWords stuff. But, this is a small effort. I think this is a small package of these, services that these guys should focus on and educate themselves on first.
Yep.
Before they bring somebody on board, so they understand how it impacts and affects their business.
So that's pretty hot and heavy information. What I want to do now is, we've talked a lot about, obviously setting up the website, defining who you are as a general contractor, understanding your, maybe your preferred client profile. We've talked about Google and all the, some of the inner workings that are there. We've talked about the importance of educating yourself. You can't just sort of think that you don't have to be a part of this. If you want a high performance building company, you've got to basically educate up. You've got to think about how you're going to implement today's marketing technology and then take advantage of that. Then you just started to allude to talking about like promotions on, some of the digital platforms. And that really starts to move away from people that are ready to engage a general contractor today. In other words, a Google search, to then using some of these platforms to bring awareness, so brand awareness is basically what we're talking about. Yeah. So let's chat about, just to finish off here today, let's chat about how you might use the Facebooks and the Instas to develop awareness and then drive traffic ultimately to your website and to your contact page, so people can get on there, get introduced. Your 24/7 salesperson is your website. Yeah. And then it makes it encouraging for them enough, build security, build confidence in your business and your brand, that they would actually put their first name, their email address, and some of their project details for you to then follow up as a general contractor. So what we want to talk about for the next 5 or 10 minutes maybe is what we've done in the past as it relates to Max. This is not call to action or lead gen. This is branding. Yeah. So let's just talk, and then how that really does complement, the whole aggressive call to action immediately, clients out there.
For branding and awareness, to stay top of the mind of the customer, I think over a period of time, it's really important to understand the psychology of the customer. What do they do before they make a decision?
Right.
Or what do they do even before they start looking for you? Right. So it's fairly easy to understand, in 4 steps. I don't remember exactly, but it was really nicely defined that customer first searches, that relates to the platforms you need to be, which is Google. Right. Then they compare, then they compare with you different services who are offering just like you. Yep. And then they want to make sure when they end up going on your social different platforms, and then they make a decision.
Right. So there's a few steps before they even
Yeah.
want to. And in this day and age, people know us better before they even contact us.
Before they contact us. So it's not just about in our industry, it's about every industry. It's you and me, we are doing this every day. We search, then
we could actually lose clients and not even know it. People look at our website, either there's too much friction, there's not enough information. I had one gentleman ring head office here, and he said, I asked him, I said, how did you find out about us? And he did a search, and he said, you guys had the most professional website.
Yeah.
Now, we could be a really bad builder just with a website that's really top notch.
Yeah.
But the fact that we balance both those books, and we've got video testimonials to prove the fact that we actually do provide a good service, that's why that individual picked up the phone and called us, because he was able to sort of get the confidence in us as a brand and as a general contracting service to engage us. Now, if our website and anything, there was something there that there was friction that he wouldn't like, we wouldn't have got the call, and yet we wouldn't have known about it.
We wouldn't have known about it. Exactly. So this is why the way we have understood it, and you, when you mentioned about video testimonial, is a part of it. Customer, before they want to make that phone call, they want to make sure, they want to pick us for their services, and how they make that decision is usually testimonials is an important part in the social media right now. They do not want to trust us speaking about ourselves.
Yeah.
They want to listen to the other users, what kind of experience they have.
So two things that we've talked about often is one is that we don't sell construction services, and this might be a message to our audience and our GCs. We don't sell construction services primarily. We sell peace of mind and security. You got it. Right. And then the second thing is, when you go out to do these meetings, even though we've got such a good website or whatever, they still, the barrier of distrust in us as general contractors, because of all the HGTV programs, is so high. Even if we've got a good website, we've still got to work terribly hard to deliver a good service. So, because people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Right. Totally. So that's what we're trying to do with some of the Facebooks and the Instas and stuff like that.
Yeah. So they just need to understand this, why they need to be present first, where they need to be present, where the searches are happening.
Right.
Once the searches happen, what happens? They land to your website. So it's really important for you to have a nice website, easily understandable, easily navigatable. And contact information, it should be easily contactable. Your contact information should be right up there. So if they're looking for something, they can make a call. And before they do that, once they've checked your website, they also try to make sure, it's a psychological behavior for some reason for users. They do go check out other links. They check you out on Facebook. They try to check you on YouTube. They try to check you on Instagram. And if you are, that's where the omnipresence kicks in. And if you are there, it's like before a phone call, the distrust level is way up at 100.
That's true.
They see your website, they go on Google, they find you on top results, it's 10% gone. Then they go on your website, it's 20% down.
So we're slowly
deconstructing that wall of distrust that you always talk about. And that's how the sales process is complete, right? It's about how they can make sure, like, yes, I want to go call these services.
So it's almost like if GCs would sort of embrace this philosophy, if you like, a lot of what we find, I know with one of our guys in this town, he feels like that he has so much more credibility with clients. They tend to trust him quicker. Yeah. So it's fair to say that if our digital presence starts to break down that wall of distrust whilst we don't even have to do it, then that's a leveraging tool.
That's a leveraging tool. That's having a sales guy standing for you online 24/7, right? And not even asking for,
so I guess we got to look at, depending on every general contractor is different, in their areas are different, look at what means the most to clients in your area and really put that front and center in your website. So it's going to help, which is why we go back to video testimonials, because that's probably can be a knockout punch. When people listen to that, they really see, the trust builds up. Yeah. And really, I mean, that is why general contractors have a hard time, is because people can't help themselves but to distrust. Yeah. And it takes a lot of work to build up the trust, a lot of time. Yeah. We don't even start talking about sales process where it's like the 8 to 12 touch points before you'll actually close a deal. And that's, like you say, is with that brand awareness using the various platforms, websites, and digital. Yeah. So talk to us about, so like for me this morning, I put up I found an article online and I did one that related to retail, to homeowners. It talked about, prices for new homes jumping up. And of course that would then pull the value of established homes up in some areas. Now, that was just an organic post. I literally just published an organic post.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what I want to get you to talk about real quick is the difference between an organic post and then a boosted post and then a campaign that would be totally different. So can you just run us those three? And I think that's a pretty good day's work for us. So you just chat to us about that.
With campaigns and how we leverage Facebook and organic, and the difference between you ask organic and boosted posts. Organic post you should be doing to understand how much audience is engaging with your content,
right?
And if you need to bring more audience to your page, you have to market that post specifically. Right. So initially, I suggest brands to do some boosted post in the beginning. And once they think they have created an audience, they should reflect, how much their organic content is bringing audience and what's the response on their organic content. And we make decisions based on that, like if we need to engage our audience in a local market who are kind of looking into the services, because Facebook definitely drills down, on interests.
Right.
That's a really strong and powerful tool right now these days.
And so to give us some, and you would talk about a lot of the time, you'd say, look, this would make a good video for a campaign, but we want to post it to our timeline, or to the feed organically.
Yeah.
So it stays on the timeline. Yeah. That was your recommendation.
Yeah.
And you'd recommend that to GCs to put stuff out there on an organic platform and then grab that and maybe use that as a boosted post after the fact.
It depends on what you're looking on what's the target of your campaign that you want to run.
Right.
What's the goal? What's the goal of the post you're trying to do, right? Whether you want to so every post we make on Facebook is for mostly branding and awareness, so we can engage customer with our brand. Who are looking for similar interests like general contracting services. So we know we are only marketing our content to a certain type
appropriate
of
audience.
Yeah. And to engage local audience, we also want to engage local audience. That's why we came up with giveaways, a bunch of social community things. So you can,
because we never pay money to boost, like say for the Halloween gift that's out there now. We don't pay for that. We promote it a certain way and we get good engagement, good interaction.
Yeah. And we trap that audience and then we retarget them. And we do not retarget them with salesy emails or salesy posts. We just try to create, again, coming back to the point when people say what kind of content you should produce. It's not a hard science.
Because probably 90% of the engagement that we get, let's say for the Halloween gift basket, they're not even looking for a builder.
Yeah.
They're looking for free stuff.
Yeah.
And so, that's very much just a branding and marketing. Because in the event, like you said at the beginning, we want to be top of mind, front of mind when people go, when I mention the word, which franchise or which business do you think of when I mention the word hamburger?
Yeah.
There's only a couple, right?
Yeah.
That's the power of a brand.
Totally.
So what we're trying to do and what our GCs should do in their areas if they're going to do their own marketing is you want to be the most recognizable, the most trusted, brand in that area. That's the goal. Exactly. So that's why we would do the branding and the marketing and do promos and giveaways, even though there's no call to action on the Halloween gift basket. None.
Yeah.
It's just something that we're putting out there.
It's what our vision for the brand is in the community we want to take. So it's before all these efforts we talked about, it starts with what vision do you have for your own business.
Mm-hmm. But it's a very long game. You've mentioned it a couple of times. Like you don't go out there and do a branding like a giveaway and then wait for your phone to ring. It's completely incongruent. You've got a strategy with an outcome that aren't in alignment at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. So look, I think have you got anything else to add? Is there anything else you want to round out the conversation, to our audience, our general contractors? I mean, that's a good amount of information, I think, for the first time round.
With a quick snapshot of what we just said, just make sure, think about the long-term goals for your business and how, because most of the business owners are operating in a local area. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's if you strategically work, your way up and understand and educate yourself just a little bit about this marketing, it can go a long way for your business. Makes a lot of difference. It could be it can become a generational business.
All right, Sam, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you so
great
much
to have
for
you
having
on
me.
the show. And
we'll be back soon.
All right, so everyone out there that's that's watching or listening on the Business for Builders podcast or YouTube channel, feel free to drop some comments and some questions if you've got them. and I'll be sure to answer those. If you want to email me directly at max@businessforbuilders.ca. And of course, like and subscribe. And if you know somebody who would benefit from this information, feel free to share it as well. We would appreciate it. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.